Hello, Mordrim here. Today with a leveling guide for my Ice Witch that utilizes the Ice Shard spell to turn enemies into Swiss cheese. We combine this with chills, freezes and cold fire to create a truly fun and very smooth experience. To make the build function in the most basic form, we need to solve 5 problems: AoE, single target, spirit generation, defenses and mobility. This guide tackles all of those, providing you with an icy leveling experience, letting you reach endgame in the most slippery way possible. Also make sure to check out my starter guide, Lucky Hit Guide, and tips video for additional information on mechanics and terms I'm using in this build guide. The mechanics of this build are simple. Ice Shard shoots out 5 projectiles that do not pierce enemies on their own. For this we need to combine the spell with the aspect of Piercing Cold legendary power. Ice Shard also gets a 40% chance to ricochet off of targets with a 100% chance on frozen enemies. Next we are going to take a look at the enchantment for this spell, which automatically conjures and fires Ice Shards towards frozen enemies. We combine this with Frost Nova to AoE freeze everything around us to shoot out icicles at enemies that will pierce them while ricocheting in all directions, resulting in some nasty AoE damage. Hitting enemies with those skills will also make them vulnerable, which boosts the damage an enemy takes by 20%, with multiple ways to increase the multiplier even more. But wait, there is even more. Using the Shatter Keystone, we are going to accumulate and store damage we deal to foes while they are frozen. This will result in 25% of the accumulated damage to be dealt once the freeze expires. Bosses, however, are immune to freezes, so how are we going to utilize this keystone? Simply by staggering them. The bar filling up underneath a boss health bar is filled up by applying all kinds of CC to them. Once it's full, they are going to bend their knee and suffer all forms of CC at the same time, including freeze. We can further combine this with passives like Core Frost and legendary powers like Aspect of the Control to boost the damage during this window. All of those modifiers are multiplicative with each other, including Vulnerability, Icy Touch, Permafrost and even Glass Cannon. Now, all this damage is based on freezes and chill, but where is the Cold Fire? This one is introduced with the second enchantment. Firebolt makes all direct damage apply additional burning damage to enemies, no matter the type. Meaning every shard we conjure is also burning enemies due to its phosphorus properties. This is nice to have for additional damage over time, but we can further combine this with other effects and ways to scale our damage. Burning is an ailment that works on bosses regardless of the stagger window. This makes passives like Devouring Blaze, Fiery Surge and Warmth apply all the time. The first one is just an increase to our critical damage, but the other two are also great for our utility purposes. Fiery Surge increases your mana regeneration and Warmth provides you with the only source of health recovery easily available during leveling. And there is another benefit to this. We can add an additional affix modifier to our repertoire. Increased damage versus burning enemies also works on bosses compared to other CC based increases like chilled enemies. The next spell available to us is Teleport for some much needed mobility and unstoppable status, which makes us immune to CC and breaks already applied CC. We can combine this one with the aspect of the Bounding Conduit and an ability upgrade to buff us with additional movement speed and damage reduction after its use. Our defensive cooldown is Ice Armor, which provides us with additional mana regeneration and a strong barrier that refills while damaging vulnerable enemies. And for the last slot we are going to slot in Deep Freeze, an ultimate ability that encases you in ice to make you immune for multiple seconds. Enemies around you are also chilled and ultimately frozen, which in turn conjures Ice Shards. But the biggest benefit of this skill is the reduction of non-ultimate cooldowns. Frost Nova, Ice Armor and Teleport are all affected by this. To make the most use out of this, we are also going to throw in Prodigy's aspect into the mix to restore a big chunk of mana whenever we use a cooldown. And we can also combine all the CC with Aspect of the Umbral, which generates mana for each crowd controlled enemy. With this we finish our checklist with AoE, single target, spirit generation, defenses and mobility taken care of. Now I can show you the skill tree. Take note of each number besides the respective node signifying the order in which you should pick up the skills and passives. You can find planners in the description box down below. The skill tree is tailored towards leveling. However, it also forms a great base for the endgame and can be played as such. But I will also ship a theory crafting video with an endgame build on release. As already mentioned, we are going to utilize the Ice Shard enchantment first and the Firebolt enchantment second. For this we need to put 1 point in the Firebolt. Next up, legendary powers. Each one can be acquired by completing a dungeon or story quest, which lets you imprint them on gear with the lowest possible roll. Some of them are much needed to make the build even function, so make sure to grab them as fast as possible by clearing the respective dungeons. I named the aspects in order of importance. First, Aspect of Piercing Cold. This one enables Ice Shard to pierce enemies, which is crucial for this build. You can obtain it by clearing the Dead Man's Dredge in the Fractured Peaks. Prodigy's aspect restores mana after using a cooldown. This aspect is great for bosses and goes a long way in making sure you're always having mana to use. This one can be obtained by clearing Witchwater in Havazar Umbra and is considered a crucial aspect for this build. Aspect of the Umbral is next, providing you with mana generation whenever you CC an enemy. You can obtain this one by clearing Champion's Demise in the dry steppes. It's a very strong legendary power for this build and will make clearing trash much more enjoyable, however it's not needed and only a nice to have. Next we want to grab aspect of the Bounding Conduit, which provides with a movement speed boost after using teleport for 3 seconds. You will gain access to this one after completing Comdor's Temple in the dry steppes. An alternative to this is Ghostwalker, since we are gaining the unstoppable buff during teleport. This will trigger the aspect and provide us with a 4-second movement speed buff at half the value, but it will also make you ignore unit collision. You can find this one by progressing the campaign in Skosglen. I personally will prefer the Bound Conduit due to its higher movement speed value. And lastly, aspect of Control, which boosts our damage versus frozen enemies by a huge amount. This only works versus staggered bosses, but it will also make clearing trash much faster. You can find this in the Sunken Library in Kyrgyzstan. Now a quick disclaimer, never put a legendary aspect on your weapon. This will just cost you additional resources and has no benefit whatsoever because you are going to exchange a weapon regularly. Lastly, stats you want to look out for. Disclaimer, more armor and weapon damage is almost always worth sacrificing some stats for. However, gaining access to a very good item with the right stats can go a long way towards keeping it relevant for longer. Intelligence, willpower and dexterity are all great and very useful to us. Prioritize willpower for more mana regeneration and dexterity for more critical strike chance. As for the other stats, go for critical strike chance, movement speed, cooldown reduction, core skill levels, defensive skill levels and health on your armor. Cooldown reduction can only roll on helmets and amulets, and movement speed can only roll on boots and amulets, so keep an eye out for those. As for damage improving mods, go for critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, damage versus elite, burning and healthy enemies, damage with core skills and ice damage. Socket skulls into jewelry for armor, rubies into your armor for health percent and emeralds into your weapon for critical damage versus vulnerable targets. Resistances and reductions to damage you receive are always nice to have, but don't need to be prioritized. However, once you go for world bosses like Ashava, stack as much of the respective resistance attributed to them to prevent getting one-shot. Now this sums up my leveling guide for the Ice Shard Sorcerer in Diablo 4. I will go into even more depth on release with an endgame build guide including the Paragon board. I will discuss this one in a theory crafting video because I cannot test it right now. If you want more of the juicy content, make sure to like, sub and comment. And if you want to support me some more, make sure to check out my Patreon, PayPal and channel membership. See you next time and bye.
I need time. I'm not ready. I'm out of mana.